think you have to post pretty consistently. I would say 3 to 5 times a week.
Oh, okay.
Just as a reminder, everyone, recording's on. A lot of background chattering causes echoes to the recording. So just basically 1 or 2 people talking at the same time, no more than that.
Y'all are rowdy. It's Friday, and I fed you bagels, and now you're all chit-chatty because you're a bunch of salespeople.
And caffeine.
And caffeine. So I say 3 to 5 times a week. I don't think you need to post every single day, but I think the big thing I would encourage you to think about, Emmanuel, is just really like the quality of your content, right?
Yeah.
If you've got great stuff to say, post. But if you're like, I gotta post a reel today because I should, like I looked at my social this morning, I'm like, I don't really post anything this week, but I don't have anything to say this week. Like there's stuff going on. I don't want to comment. I don't want to talk. I'm just like, I'm good. I don't have anything to add to the general conversation of life or real estate right now. But if you have stuff you want to talk about, then I would say post that.
Makes sense.
Sorry?
In terms of the points in Reels, so if you just post a post, you don't get 5 points.
You get a social media post is 1.
And the story would be 1.
The story would be 1. Thank you for asking. Story would be 1. Questions or comments on the points? 64 of you on Zoom land. Awesome. I'm so happy. Yay, yay, yay. Okay, so tell me, are those the clarifying questions out of the way? All of you litigators are like, okay, now I understand, you're good, everyone's fine. Okay, so now tell me, we only have 1 book. Do we have any more, Matt? No, okay, I'll print them. So Pasha, you need 1, and Magda, I think you need 1.
Some books here.
Those are that's today's book. That was from last week.
Oh, okay.
Tell me how it felt. What worked? What was good about it? What did you not like? I mean, you're here, so that's great. You came back for week 2. That's okay. That's for this week. We're looking for last week's book. Thank you, Rudy. Appreciate it. Tell me your name.
I think Hermie. I think I
Hermie.
I think I like the accountability because it's like when you think about collecting points, daily activities that you normally do. When you start to track, you're like, okay, wow, like you kind of a positive reinforcement, like keep it going, keep it going.
Okay. How many of you like the accountability of the points?
100%. It puts like a fire underneath you to like,
Yes.
or like poking you to like do something.
Yeah. Zoomland, are you all liking the points? The points were an eye opener. I need to do more, Vanessa says. Love the points. I do. How many of you could hear my voice all week in your brain?
Maybe.
Like definitely that woman making me do all this stuff I don't want to do. Right?
Give us a prize for the highest points.
I know what your prize is. Yesterday I went to the Mississauga Grand and I booked the holiday party. That's your prize.
Extra bagels for you.
Yes, extra bagels. I'll get you a crown, okay? How about that? I'll get you a crown.
What about the bow and get a
Yeah,
crown?
you like that.
The
Morning,
person
Caitlin.
who gets the highest points has to wear it throughout the summit
Okay.
for that week.
For that
it's
week.
like you're a pageant winner.
Oh, I like that. That's good.
Whoa.
That's good. Tell me your name. Anna.
Well,
Yes.
it will be if I do my work.
Okay, shh, quiet everyone. Question. Go ahead, Anna.
So we have all of this, and some of the stuff we do, but we don't do them in the same week.
Yep.
Right? But in future, it's really hard to combine everything in one week.
Yes.
So my questions, do you like, I want to be just realistic for my future. I don't know how people manage.
Mhm.
Do you have that you spread some stuff like, okay, this week I do
Different
this like
weeks.
this part, and that's this week I focus on this stuff.
I love that. So the question is, how do you choose what you're doing from a points choice every week? Are you picking the same things every week? Do you think this week you'll try different things? Does anyone have some input for Anna they can share? Zoomland, feel free to use the comments. I'll give you my take on it, what I've seen historically with people that participate in the class. A lot of times people will get kind of in the same rhythm of doing the same things over and over and over again, which is okay. But what I try to encourage you to think about is you do want to pick different channels, especially if you're like, you know, I've never door knocked. I've never done that. Never been something I've done. Why don't you grab someone from your group and say, let's go try door knocking and see if let's practice the script together and let's kind of get out there. I think it does help to try new stuff and see if there's something else you like as well.
But that's not what I asked.
Oh, it's not. Okay,
No.
sorry, I misunderstood the
Like,
question.
yeah, I want to do all of this,
In 1 week?
not in 1 week.
Okay.
As I'm asking, like, because you're the most experienced probably from all of us. All of this is great to do, and we have to do this. It just have you prioritize like combination what I do this week. Is it personal on each
It's
person?
personal to each person.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Some of you were like, I'm never going to door knock. That's okay. Miku?
I think it's also good to look at your weekly work right? And then see what you can fit in. And maybe that's more realistic than being like, I'm gonna do these 5 activities, because your workload is going to dictate how much time you really have on a daily. I mean, unless you don't have anything coming up, then obviously you'll be creative to be like, I can do the hardest thing. So I think it's also a matter of sitting down, looking at your week and be like, okay, these are the 8 activities that I really want to do. I can fit for it.
Love that.
Thank you.
Cheryl.
Can we get a copy of the sheet, like on the portal or by email? Because I
Yes.
marked mine up and then.
Oh, yeah, right. I forgot that. Matt, can you tell someone that? Can you, the point sheet? Is it editable, by the way, when you get it on email? Did you get it on email?
No, I used the book and.
Okay, sorry. Can you make a note to send out the points sheet, and can you ask Christine if it's, I thought she made it like editable so you could fill it in, but if we can email a copy to everyone, sorry, I should have put it in today's workbook and I forgot. You'll have to use a piece of paper, Annette, to write down your points today, because I know you're gonna be mad if you don't get your sheet by end of day. I will go over that today. Andrew, do you have a question or a comment?
I was just gonna comment on that last question that you had. I think for myself, and again, I'm no one to speak on this, but I think it's what you're good at, number one. What are the things that you're better at? For example, I like the door knock. I'm a big, loud person. I can't get over the phone and have that same presence. And second of all, it's what are the things that are actually yielding the best results? Out over time, try them and see what are the things that are actually giving you the best return. And those are the things that you tend to lean on.
But see with me, like I also don't know, but I hated in the beginning. So if I would do with this like theory, it's like okay, like I really hate it, and the more I start doing it, just pushing myself. I love it. Like everybody's telling me for class, like you guys. I love you.
On to the next
I was
one.
gonna say, you know, like you're my person.
You're like, have a good day too. All right, see you later. Okay, I want to do a couple things before we get into today's content. We've got a lot to cover. I hope you have a pen and a piece of paper. Zoomland, I hope you're ready. I got a lot of stuff I want to talk about today, and I want to try to have you out of here by 12:30. So, thanks for your patience last week with the power going out. I appreciate you toughing it out with me, and those of you in Zoomland, I know it was a little hinky with the sound. I just want to do a very quick recap on the connectivity plan. I want to know where you are on your planning. I want to know what that looks like. I want to talk about that for just a minute. Then we're going to talk about working with buyers and a system to work with buyers. So how many of you had a chance to work on your connectivity plan? I'm not going to say finish it, because then Annette's going to be like, well, what does that mean? How many had a chance to work on it? Show of hands nice and high. Zoomland, use the chat, please. Tell me if you had a chance to work on it. Okay, how many of you think you got it done for next year? Okay, how many of you got the next 6 months? Excellent. Questions or comments on the connectivity plan? Question.
Sorry, David wants to know what month we should be starting the connectivity plan for.
This month. It's October. Let's get after it. Question, Talia.
Okay, so what I heard was, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the reason why we're creating this like this is because you're gonna try and do it every year the same. However, there's a however for me. If I find that something is really just not, I just don't feel like.
That's okay. You can take it out.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So if you're new with your connectivity plan, it probably will change a little bit as you're perfecting it, right? You'll be like, oh, that didn't work out really well. That worked out super well. I'm going to have to sort of move some things around. So it doesn't have to not change every year. But if I can use you as an example, Talia sent me her connectivity plan and I looked at it. It was really, really well done, but it had a lot. There was a lot of things on it. It wasn't one thing, 3 different ways. And when I said that to you, you were like, oh, this is so much easier. One thing, 3 different ways. That's what you want to be thinking about.
Julie's done until the end of 2024.
Julie Border. That's what happens with 30 years of experience, Julie Border. Nice job getting that done. How many of you would be interested in sharing your plans? Okay, so if you're interested in sharing your plan, Julie Border, talking to you too. I'd love you to email it to me, and when I see you next week, I'll put some on the screen and we can kind of work through them. I can tell you what I think works and maybe offer some suggestions. So that offer's open to anybody. If you have your plan done and you want to send it over.
Sorry, just like what form is it from this book, the connectivity?
It's in the first book.
Yeah, okay.
It's in the first book here, this guy. My life's work. Kidding. That's my filter. Okay, so let's talk about a system to work with buyers. All right, Matt, I'm ready for, okay, good. Let's open today's workbook if you don't mind. We're going to talk about a system to work with buyers. So you have a couple things in your hand. you have the module content for today, and then you have this booklet. How many of you had a chance to come on Signature Live and see Rich Robbins this week? Did you have a chance to come and see him? So this is his, I just ripped off his book. This is his book that he gave out. Remember he said if you sign up for the conference, he'll give you the downloadables. So I grabbed it, Christine made it signaturized. I added some sections to it, which I thought we should. It's not finished, but it is available. You can use it. I want to talk about it today. The one thing I wasn't clear on, those of you that are a little more experienced in the room, are we handing this to them and they're filling it out? Or are we
Sitting.
we're sitting? Okay, because some of the questions I was like, this is super, I guess we're doing this, it's very detailed. I am best reached by, I guess the way it was worded, I am best reached by. I was like, are they filling this out as we're talking? Anyways, I like to use it too as a discussion piece. So this is part of your package, which we're going to talk about today, your buyer package, but we will talk about this as well. So let's talk about a system to work with buyers. Open up your book and let's talk about the buyer process. John Pescaris, at the end of class, can you remind me? I want to talk about using the graphs and the charts to get buyers off the fence, because that was your question for Rich. I'm asking him to remind me and he's asking Siri to remind him. I should just get myself a Siri. Today his name is Matt. All right.
So we can ask our marketing people.
That is correct. Yep. You can put your own information on that. I just need to check with them. Christine, our design manager, was supposed to be out here today with us, but she's not feeling well. I just need to double check if we might add a page so this isn't on the back. And I just need to figure out how we're going to brand it with your branding. So I wanted you guys to have it today. I hustled kind of hard to get it done. So I wanted to have it for us to talk about, but I just need to like actually make sure she's ready to go and hit yes.
I think if you do it digitally and you send them like the name of the client and like your like typically they already have your branding, they add it on there.
Yes, that's where they add that on the buyer book. Actually, I should have brought a buyer book, but I didn't. But this, yeah, I just need to triple check with Christine. We can get this out today, but it is ready to go. All right, so let's talk about the buyer process. Let's talk about working with buyers. So this is sort of the process as I've laid it out. There's obviously steps and things that come in here, but I really think it's consultation, showings, negotiation, closing, and follow-up. Sounds so simple, right? Find ourselves a buyer, do the consult, show them some properties, negotiate a deal, and we close. No, I know it's not quite that simple. So let's start with step one, which is the consultation. We had a guest speaker on this week on Wednesday for the Champions Group named Adina Dragasanu. She is a top agent from BC, and she was talking about buyers. And it was great to listen to her because I felt like her philosophy on working with buyers really kind of sort of aligns with what I feel about it. And that is the consultation really is the most important step. That is the most important step. So a lot of times if we get a lead, we start on step two, which is the showings, right? Because they're like, well, I just really want to see this house, or, you know, we may know we bought already. Like, we know how this works. We don't need to sit down with you. And sometimes I think we get caught and we go with them, right? We're like, okay, great. Yeah, we'll just show you the properties. And inevitably, if you do that, something goes awry in the deal, right? What goes awry? What can sometimes happen if you skip that consultation step?
You don't know what they want, really.
You don't know what they want.
You're wasting
They're
time.
not qualified.
They're not qualified.
And basically you don't know how much they're qualified, like you're shopping out of their price.
Good. Budget. So what
I'm
you
just
said,
saying you
budget?
could waste time. They could want something
Good.
else.
Wasting time. How many of you have had buyers and you're down the road and they're thinking about making an offer, and then you realize that their down payment is like sitting in an RRSP, or it's with their parents, or like they can't do anything. They have no money. You're like, oh, we just spent all this time, and then by the time they're ready to buy that property, it's already gone. So I think the consultation is the very most important step. And on the call with Adina, she said something really smart that I also have felt before when I'm working with buyers. Is she said, I always worry sometimes I don't want to insult people with what I think they know or don't know by saying, well, we have to have a consultation. And I think even though we think people are experienced or smart or they've done this before, this process is so intricate and so complicated that I think there's a way to say it nicely to people where you say, look, I know you've done this and I know you know exactly what's going to happen, but I think it's great if we just spend 15 minutes, kind of go over some maybe new changes and regulatory issues we haven't talked about before since you bought a property last time. I've got some stuff I want to share with you. We can talk about the market, and then away we go. Okay. So the consultation is your number one most important thing. I like you to have the consultation in the office. I think the office looks nice. I think, I will say, I think the facilities are nice. I think it's nice to have a reception to come in. You can put their name if you want out there. I think there's something about the presence of an office that makes a difference when you're having a consultation. It makes a statement. And I think when you're going to visit other professionals, you typically go see them in their office. Now I know with Zoom, there's a lot of, you know, options now for Zoom and meeting virtually and all that kind of good stuff. If that's your only choice, fine, take it. But I really do prefer the face-to-face conversation where you can have everything out and ready to go, okay?
Well, at their home.
At their home, good question. I like at their home if they're selling that home.
Okay.
I find if they're not selling that home, sometimes being at their home is distracting
Yeah.
for them. I can't tell you how many times I've gone into someone's house and like the dog's running around and the kids are on the doorbell rings, they order pizza and like, you're like, okay, I just need you to focus in, pay attention. Okay, here we go. So I only like at their house if they're also selling that house. Okay, so what are we looking for at the consultation? Number one, we're looking for motivation. I want you to underline the word motivation. I want you to circle it. I want you to star around it. And of those three things, where, when, and why, you need to have two. Your buyer needs to have two of those. Are you guys looking at the same thing I'm looking at?
No? Yeah.
I'm under step one, consultation. What are we looking for at the consultation? Does this look different?
Also, we are writing it as.
Oh, there we go.
It's not about motivation.
Yes, it is.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
We're people. We're good with people. We're good with people, right? Okay, so you need to have two of these three things to have a motivated buyer. Sometimes y'all come in and see me and you'll say, well, how does buyer? And they're really motivated. And I'm like, okay, great. Tell me about that. And they're like, well, they really want to sell their house because it's too big. I'm like, perfect. Okay. And they want to buy something smaller. So I've been showing them smaller houses. And I'm like, okay, great. When do they want to do this by? Well, I don't know, whenever they find the right house. Okay. Is there any kind of time motivation? Is there anything driving them? Why are they making the decision now? And you're like, well, the house is just too big. Your buyer's really not that motivated. They don't have two of these three things, right? A motivated buyer is, we need to downsize because we don't want to spend another winter in this house having to deal with the snow. So we want to be out of here before the snow flies. That's a motivated buyer looking for a property that maybe doesn't have snow maintenance. I want you asking yourself this question continually, because the biggest challenge I see with working with buyers is the time required. It's so much time. I was talking to an agent yesterday and she said she showed 4 condos downtown and it took her 3 hours. 4 properties. The time you find parking and get in the unit and find the key and talk to the concierge and get your RICO letter, blah, blah, blah. Traffic. Time. So I really want to make this crystal clear to you. In the consultation, you're looking for that motivation and you're going to use this document. Matt, you can go to the next page. You're going to use this document as your guideline for them. So when you're going through this conversation, you're chatting with them, you're constantly thinking to yourself, why are they buying now? What is driving them? When do they need to be there by?
Nikki would like to know if you give them an option of where to meet for this consultation.
Ooh, great question. What did I say last week? I make suggestions, you make decisions. So I suggest we meet in the office. That's usually how I do it, Nikki. I usually say, you know, if it works for you, why don't you come in and meet me here in my office and we can, you know, I can have the computer ready, I can have some properties up, we can kind of go through what it is you're looking for. Sometimes it's kind of like a bit of a carrot, right? Because I know not all the buyers want to come in and meet with you. I'm very clear on that. Sometimes you have to do a little bit of like, why do they want to come in and meet you? And so you have to sometimes figure out what is it that's driving them. Do they need market knowledge? If they really push back, fine, meet them somewhere else. But ideally, in the office is where you just set it up. And you go for like the assumptive close. Like, okay, so looking forward to seeing you on Tuesday at 7 o'clock. I'll see you. Here's the address to my office. I think you just really go on like assumption. That's where they're coming. Question?
Yeah, well, so I have 2 comments. Like, the one thing about the office, so you can go over a lot of the things that you want to cover, but also maybe you have your BRA ready at that point too. And I think if you set the precedent of allowing your client to dictate all of the terms, you're essentially just going to end up putting them in your car and driving them around. And another thing you said to me about 8 years ago, Sam, no mo, no go. And I still remember that.
No mo, no go. I had some bangers back then, huh? No mo, no go. No motivation. They're not going to go anywhere. You're going to show them the perfect house and be like, why aren't you buying this house? Because they're not motivated. No mo, no go.
Yeah, I would like to know if you'd recommend using this booklet over an interactive online form.
Yes, I like the booklet. I think you can use an interactive form. Some of you are of an age where you only know how to do stuff on the computer. You're not entirely sure what paper actually is. But I do think that there's something about this, right? I do think. Now, yeah, when we get to talking about the actual presentation, I don't mind doing that on a tablet or on a computer, or I'll show you the Canva document we have, but I think that this is nice. I also think in your brain, you know, when you meet with a professional and they pull out a book and they get a pen and you're talking and they're making notes and they're like hanging off every word and you're like, oh, so important. Like I saw my financial advisor, not that I have millions of dollars, and he had this like thing, this quarterly, whatever it was called, and the bank probably produced it, but we were sitting down and he's making these notes. Okay, what's 10 years going to look like, and what's your income going to be this year, and what are you going to do about that, and what do you do about the girls, and do it. I felt kind of important. I was like, okay, it's not all awful. I'm not going to end up a bag lady. I think there's some importance to this. Andrew?
I'd add to, when I do my presentations, I do them on a tablet, but I create the whole thing in paper form and hand it to them, because I feel you're going to be paid $20,000-$30,000. I want to leave them with something.
Yes.
That has gratitude.
Yes. Is that what you're gonna say to Andrew?
Yeah. One, it looks very professional. Like I always come with a buyer book, even though I'm doing my notes online, and it's just a nice take leave away. I guess.
I like Paper Gal. I think you want to do it as an actual piece of paper. So if we look through this document, which we have up on the screen here, so we start with narrowing the focus. One of the things that Rich talked about when he was showing us this book is like buying a home is really a process of elimination, not a process of selection. And so this conversation on narrowing your focus really is taking this huge city or neighborhood they want to live in and trying to bring it down. So the way this is set up is quite strategic. So you can see the start of the information has about them, just their, you know, blah, blah, blah stuff, right? And you'll see there's a little thing, have you bought or sold real estate before? Great question. I am best reached by, call to sell, text, or email. I love that too. I think it's important to know your client's communication. Jared James calls it their communication love language, how they'd like to be communicated to. I had a client, one of my best clients, Jane Valentine, God bless her, she moved every year. She only would communicate with me on email. I could not get her on the phone. I'd be like, Jane, we're in the middle of the negotiation. Can you just call me? She's like, no, I can't. She doesn't want to, she's allergic to the phone. I love being able to know how your client wants to hear from you. I think that's a really powerful question. So then we're going to talk about the location. And again, this is set strategically. So we're going to talk about what they're looking for and get them excited. This is an exciting process. I talked to an agent yesterday who was going on a listing presentation, and she's like, I'm going to do it wrong and I'm going to price it wrong. Well, I said, if you're not careful, you're going to show up at that appointment and you're going to scare your client and they're not going to buy anything. This is exciting for people. This is really exciting. We do it every day, so it gets kind of boring. But for normal people, not that we're not normal, but for normal people who don't do this every day, this is fun for them. They're going to go look at properties. They're going to look in buildings. They're going to get to see stuff. It's going to be like HGTV. It's exciting. So we go into what they're looking for with the specifics. I added a condo section because there wasn't one. So if condo selected, it's some specifics around condominium buying. Then you go into favorite features, and then we go into the numbers. So it kind of makes sense, right? The way it flows. I don't necessarily think you want to start with numbers, especially if they've just sat down and you're like, hey, so great to see you. So let's talk about your money. And sometimes they're uncomfortable and you're uncomfortable, and like it's easier to start the conversation with what they're looking for. You get them excited. Then you go into the financial piece of the puzzle. Okay. So at your consultation, just so everyone's clear, we start with this. Okay, so they come into the office, you sit down, you grab coffee, you pull out your booklet, you have your presentation also ready to go, and we go through this first with them. What they're looking for, their financial information, we talk about closing costs on the back side. Have they heard about that? Has anyone educated them yet? It also helps you figure out how much research they've done and who they've been talking to for their finances, maybe how polished or organized the person is. If they're like, well, I'm working with a mortgage broker, and you say, okay, great, did they go over closing costs with you? And they're like, oh no, they didn't even mention it. That's a bit of a red flag for you to realize maybe they're working with someone who either isn't experienced or is going too fast or isn't educating the client, okay? Then you're gonna go into your actual presentation. For the purpose of the session, I think let's take this down for a minute and let's pull up that Canva buyer booklet. Okay, I'm going to stick with consultation. We're going to spend a lot of time on the consultation piece.
Full buyer checklist.
No, the copy of buyer's prez is probably what it is.
This one here.
Yes. So in a normal in like a non-Zoom, non-person in a normal time. This is gonna be on Canva. So you're gonna have this on Canva. I'm working with Christine to make this print friendly with the charts and the graphs, so that you're able to have those and be able to have that conversation. For now, it's just set up like this and it's not print friendly. It doesn't look good when we print it. So for now, it's just digital, but stand by. I couldn't get that done in 2 days, guys. Sorry, I've hustled hard, but I couldn't get that done. So this is how the presentation looks. So we talk about the agenda. We talk about understanding the market, factors that affect home values, the home buying process, why choose Signature, buying costs, and documents and forms. Now, if you're experienced, sorry, Matt, go back 1 sec. Yeah. If you're experienced, this is going to be why choose Sam Hewitt. It's not going to be why choose Signature. If you're newer and you're like, I don't know what to say. I don't know why would they work with me? I don't have a lot of experience yet. You can marry yourself to the brokerage and talk about the experience the brokerage has, the fact that you have mentorship, you have leadership, someone's always there to help and to guide you. You're not on your own. There's no scenario we haven't faced. Although I do find myself saying, I actually don't know that once a day, but then we figure it out. If you're newer, you're going to say why choose Signature. If you're experienced, you're going to talk about you. Okay, make sense? Question.
What are the metrics that you control when you kind of market yourself, like why choose me?
Oh yeah, great question. Metrics. So I think you can actually work out your negotiating, like your difference between your buy sell. So if your client makes an offer on a property and you negotiate the deal and you get 4% off of the asking price, you can work that out on an average from the last year. Kind of like you do on the listing presentation side where you work out your percentage of list to sale ratio. So you can do that. I also think you can talk about education. So if you have the certified negotiation expert designation, or if you have, some kind of designated negotiating expertise, I would have that in there. I would talk about length of time in the business. You can talk about, award levels, commission, but not, you're not going to say I make this much money, but you can say I sell this many homes every year. I qualify in the top 10% of agents across the country using the Royal LePage Canada guidelines. Those would be some of the stuff that I would put in there.
Okay. Are some of these metrics tracked anywhere? Because I know sometimes we get calls from different brokerages. Okay, we are calling you because these are your stats.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
so
he's
they
gonna
know
kill me.
also
He's gonna kill me for telling you, but Jeff Slidham can find that for you. Jeff's gonna get 700 emails today being like, give me my numbers. So there's a system called IMS. IMS pulls the data from Treb. And that's when agents call you or brokerages call you and they say, you're this number. You can get that on IMS, but it's only one account. We can't share it. So if you email Jeff, you can get it for you. Okay. Questions, Ray?
If you have a buy sell, would you do the consult in the office and then do a separate?
Ooh, great question. So if the client's buying and selling, would you do the consult in the office or would you go to their house? I'd probably go to their house and do it at the same time.
Okay, the consult and the listing price.
Yeah, I'd probably go at the same time. Great question. So we talk about the agenda. Then we go on to understanding the market. So all of the graphs, I dumped everything in here. You're likely not going to need all of this. This is every single possible thing. Now, one of the things I'd like you to do for homework is I want you to practice your buyer presentation. Some of you that are really experienced in the room maybe don't need to practice it necessarily, but I'd like you to practice this part. I'd like you to work with somebody in your group and I'd like you to practice explaining the market to a buyer. It's really, really important to me that you get better at using these graphs and these charts to be able to talk to people about buying real estate and be able to answer their questions and deal with their objections without using just your opinion. Not that your opinion is not valid, it is, and it's not that's not relevant, it is. But it's so much more powerful to say, you know what? Brian, thank you so much for asking that. Thanks so much for asking if the market's going to crash and why you would buy now. It's a great question. I understand why you're nervous. Do you mind if I share something with you? Let me show you, if you go back for one segment, let me show you over the last, is this 41 years? Whatever, the last years. This is what the market has done. I'm not sure why this is 2021. This should be updated. Can you remind Christine that this should be, we should have last year's number in here. Let me show you why I think that now is a great time to buy. And so you can use this chart and you can say, this is what's happened to the market over the last 41 years. This is how it behaves. Even in times of up and down, you're looking at a 6.7% increase every single year. Now, we obviously I don't really want you to buy here, clearly. But this is why we're not here. And then you can pull up another chart, another slide, another graph, another something. I want you to get really good at this skill. I want you to be the best. I want the signature agents to be the best at explaining the market as it relates to buying and selling. And those of you that are newer in the room, this is the best thing you can do for your confidence and your ability to have conversations with people, because you're going to feel like you know what you're talking about. How many times do you meet someone at a party and they say, so how's the market? And then they tell you something and then you're like, is that true? No, that can't be true. Like, no, I know more than you do for sure. Question, Stephen?
Just a comment, like I much prefer the chart that shows the average price as it grows at that 6.8%, because that I actually find a little bit confusing, because I know it went up huge 40 years ago, but I look at that, I'm like, but when you see the average kind of go like
So the
this,
dot, the next one, Matt, can you hit the slide?
like it's much easier, I find, to follow and understand as a buyer. Yeah.
And I agree with you totally. I think the only thing I would also remind you of is that we don't, just make sure you can explain it in a way that your buyer doesn't go, okay, well, I want to buy in this month, right? Because this is really good to explain kind of behavior.
This one updated on, right?
Yeah, this is updated.
So.
Is everyone okay on the chat?
With months in this slide, but when we look at the data from 1981 to 2023, it's going to be huge.
Correct.
Right, and I think Chris already has that slide of data with him, where it shows kind of a 6.87% line going across.
Yep. Yep. I think that should be in here. Can you hit the slide? I think I dumped all of them in here, but okay. So you can use, keep going. You can use this one. I throw this market watch in so they think we're not just like making up the numbers. Like I'm like the Trev actually tracks this and we're just using them. Slide. This takes you through some of those micro markets. Okay.
But you can underline your micro market there.
Yeah, that's correct. So we start with the bigger side of the market, right? Historically, what's been happening over the last while now. Then we get into the micro markets. Again, if you have a client that says to you, I want to buy a condo downtown, right now in C1, there's 7 months of inventory. Great time to be able to talk about that. Great time to be able to help your buyer understand what kind of negotiating they can do. If you've got a client that's looking in a neighborhood in a micro market where there's 1 month of inventory or 2 months of inventory, this gives you the opportunity when the client says, well, I hear we can negotiate because the market's not doing great things. This is when you can say, we can, but let me share with you why that might be a little tougher given where you're looking. And again, you can go back to these charts and these graphs to be able to show people what it is they're looking at. Slide. This is just, now I have Toronto all the way through. You can skip through all of that, Matt.
So there's a one chart.
Yeah. Keep going. This micro market, of course, shows you these different neighborhoods. The next slide, I actually took a specific category and put in so they can visually see. This is really much more helpful when you're going on listing presentations. When the client says, well, my neighbor sold last month or my neighbor sold last year for X, you can say, okay, but let's go over what's happened since then on a monthly basis. You might not need this as much for your buyers. And then your boring chart.
What would be the importance of having the semis in Brampton from November of 2021?
Yeah, in this case, it really is more applicable on the seller side.
Right.
I think it is helpful to show them what's been happening in the neighborhood.
Okay.
I also think it can be a helpful tool if you have buyers that were going to buy maybe 6 or 8 months ago or a year ago, and they maybe got either frustrated or priced out of the market, for you to kind of go back to them and say, this is what's happened.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Sam, is that last slide you just showed, that's the micro market analysis? That's how you.
That is correct. That's rated out. Yeah, get in there.
Keep track.
Get me out of the picture. Okay, good. Okay, good. This is the boring chart. Full disclosure, don't use this. But it's there if you'd like it. So then I have a little thing in your presentation on what's happening with buyers and sellers. So we update these based on, what you see. If you Google Toronto real estate today, what comes up? Probably some pretty scary doom and gloom, right? But it does help kind of show people what's happening in the market right now, so you can update these as you need them, or you don't need to use this. Again, this is on Canva, so you can mix and match your slides. You can take out what you don't want to cover, what you don't feel is relevant. So then we talk about factors that affect home values. This should be the 7 pieces, 7 something, 7 ways. Nope. I'm going to change this out. Don't look at this. I'm going to change that out to the 7 factors that drive real estate. You can skip that. Then you want to go through the process with them at your consultation. Explain how it works. This is also pro tip when you can talk about how it works with you. So if you have specific things that you like to do or you don't like to do, this is when you kind of want to talk about it, right? So as an example, if you don't want to drive people in your car, I am not a very good driver. I think I'm a good driver, but people have told me I'm not a good driver. So I didn't like to take clients in my car because it would make me really nervous. And then I'd be trying to make conversation and drive and and figure out where I'm going. And then I would just get overwhelmed and they would think that I was not wanting to make conversation with them. So this is where I would say, when we go look at properties, this is how it's going to work. And, you know, you're going to follow me in your car, etc. Okay. If you want a day's notice for your showings, if in a perfect world, you can say, usually we want to give the seller 24 hours notice to come in and look at the property unless you see something you really, really like. So this process conversation is really when you kind of lay out how you want to work. Okay. Then we talk about the BRA. The buyer representation agreement. Now, with Tressa coming down the pipeline, apparently the new BRA is like 14 pages long. So that's going to be fun. I haven't seen it yet, unfortunately. I don't think they finished it yet. But this will change, and some of this information that's in here right now will change with the new regulation. So this is what's in here at this exact present moment. If you need this presentation today, you can use it today. But we will have to update it once we get further along.
Do you think it would make sense to have something in our presentation about Reba and Tressa and how things are changing?
Yeah.
So that way,
yeah,
we can explain to them why you're signing a 14-page document.
Yeah, yeah, we can definitely do that. I'll edit this so that it has conversation and content around the regulations and the regulatory excellence and providing transparency is like the hot word they're using everywhere. Every webinar you go on, that's all they're talking about. Trust is going to provide transparency to the consumer so they know what's going on. I'm like, I think we're pretty transparent right now, but that's just me. That's the big word. So we will update that so that's in there. I think in here, this is really important for us to talk about the BRA. How many of you use the BRA every time you work with a buyer? Ooh. Oh.
Like, so we use one, right?
Okay.
But a lot of our businesses repeat and
Yes.
referral, even
Okay.
for new clients. We don't get them to sign it before
Okay.
we take them out.
Okay.
Like my mom, she never has really worked like that.
Okay.
Knock on wood, we've never had an issue
Okay.
where somebody's turned around. Because I find that people are very hesitant
Yes.
to, it's like, why am I signing this with you? I feel so trapped. Like, how do I know I'm gonna wanna work with you? How do we know we're gonna wanna work with you?
Okay, good.
So
Good. So I like that. I hear this a lot, Caitlin. People say, I don't get my clients to sign it. It's mostly repeat and referral.
it always gets signed, like.
When you get to the
When
offer.
we get to the point
Yeah.
where we're gonna do an offer, but
Yeah.
like, up until that point, we just kind of work on this, like, I trust you and you trust me, and like, we
Okay.
have a relationship, and we know our client, but that is changing, because now people are not as
Yes. Okay.
honest, but.
Okay, so I'm very okay if that's how you want to do things. There, I'm not judging. I mean, I was making a joke before doing that. You have to remember, I sit at a different side of the table, right? So I deal with the calls and the questions and the angry buyers that want out of their contract,
Right.
or I deal with, I have a buyer under contract and they just bought a house with somebody else on the weekend and now we've got to go fight for a fee. So I sit in a different perspective, right? I deal with all of the issues with the BRA that come in, along with Mike and Michael and Darren and Jeff and Chris. And I can tell you, if we had like a, you know, this is how it's done, I would have you sign it every single time. I really would. And it's okay that you don't, and it's okay that.
My question is, how do you get people to
Yes.
feel comfortable signing that?
Yes.
Because if there's the clients who just, like, we have clients who like literally were like, do you wanna read it? And they're like, no, we're like, can I explain it to you? No, I trust you.
It's fine.
They just sign it. And then we have clients who like read it and they're like, I am
Not signing this.
signing this.
Okay, so let's talk about the document. Let's talk about how we get it signed.
Specifically, if I'm working with somebody I have no prior relation to, I'll just sign for one property, the one that we're looking at.
Great.
And I'll say, look, this is just regular, this is like something that, like a formality for my office.
Yep.
I need to sign to show my broker,
Great.
but other than that, you can get out anytime.
Great.
Like, just to give that.
Happy with that. I like that. So we use remember in the contract, it has a geographic location, right? The geographic location can be addresses. It can be a single address. It can be the 4 properties you're showing them that day. It can be a geographic area. So that's one option. You can say, this is just for this property, this neighborhood, et cetera. I remember ages and ages ago, Karen Miller used to say to me, if she got a call on a listing for a buyer that wanted to go look at it, she would show them the property, but they had to sign the BRA for that property. Otherwise, she wasn't going to show it to them.
So the changes are gonna make that almost mandated though, right?
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
Yes. Yes. In theory, yes.
Okay, so we got 5 weeks to that.
Yes.
I usually say.
When you sign for.
Yeah, I just like to my client, like, we're gonna date for 1 month.
Great.
And if you don't like me.
Great. So
we're breaking up.
here's way 2. So way 1 is geography. Way 2 is time frame. So how about we try it? How about I used to, especially my younger people. Say it again?
Some people, they like to sign peer property.
Per property. Yeah, that's fine. You can, I like the time frame, and I like to relate it, you know, you can kind of talk about like dating. We're gonna get to know each other a little bit, maybe we'll go out a couple of times, make a contract for 2 weeks. After that, I'm not the kind of girl that runs around without a commitment. You know, kind of like a joke about it, right? Like I'm not, you know, I expect you
That's a
to-
nice way to put it,
Yeah, right, that's funny.
Does that
You
work for men too?
Yeah, it works for everybody. It's universal. You can also, the flip side is you can use that same time frame period if you're not signing a Caitlin. So if you have people that are like, well, what is this? And what if I get stuck with you? What if you're not very good? You say, look, this is my suggestion. Why don't we go out a couple times? I'm going to show you some properties. You can see how I work. You can get a feel for my personality and the way I run my business and my professionalism. And after we've been out a couple times, I'm going to bring the contract to you and we're going to have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's from an objection perspective. I think that's a good way to do it. There's a piece in the contract that I think you can also play with that will allow people to feel more comfortable. And that's the commission part. Right? Now, I haven't seen this new form that's a bajillion pages, so I don't know what exactly it's going to say under the commission. But the form right now under commission is blank. So you could put 0, which means if they look at a property that isn't being offered a fee, they're not responsible to pay you. You can put as per MLS listing. So if the commission's 2.25, you only get whatever's being offered, so they're not obligated to pay you anything extra. I think when it comes to the document, especially as we get into this new TRESA piece of the puzzle, I think it's really important to ask the question of what specifically bothers them. So when I had a client, I remember this woman vividly. She was referred to me by another great client. I had a meeting with her in the office, and at the consultation, we're going through the whole thing. Things are going great. I'm like, all right, great. Close this girl, and we're going to buy her a condo. We get to the contract, and she's like, nope, I don't believe in contracts. I'm like, okay. Well, what if we try it for 2 weeks? Nope. What if we take out the commission? Nope. What if we do it just per showing? Nope. Nothing. I do not believe in contracts. I said, okay. She said, look, I'll be loyal to you. I'm not going to work with anyone else. You come highly referred. Like, I'm very happy. And I had made a promise to myself, because I got burned really badly, that I was not going to work with any more buyers unless they're willing to sign the contract. I said, I'm really, really sorry. This is a practice I put into my business. I will not work with buyers if they're not willing to sign the contract, if they don't see my value. And she was like, no, I see your value. I just don't believe in contracts. From where I come from my part of the world, it's not how we do things. We do things on a handshake. And I was like, oh, I just made this promise to myself and my business coach. I've written in my business plan. This is a new standard for me this year. So I let her go. I said, I wish you luck. You changed your mind. I followed up with her. Nope, didn't change her mind. She emailed me 2 weeks later. She's like, this is the condo I just bought. Sent her flowers and wished her luck. She probably signed a contract to buy the condo.
You gotta buy real estate with a contract.
One voice at a time.
Comment in chat.
Jennifer Johnson believes exactly as you do. They won't sign a BRA. She doesn't want to work with them.
Mhm.
Julie Border will try to convince them after one showing to
Yes.
sign.
Yep.
Vanessa says that she frames it in a way that the BRA is protecting them.
Yes.
And then usually without hesitation, they sign it.
Great feedback. I love that. It does protect them. John?
Yes, how can I protect myself from showing properties that are not offering 2.5% commission?
Ooh, hard question. Question is, how do I protect myself from showing properties that aren't offering a 2.5% fee? So currently the Real Estate Business Brokers Act says that you cannot not show a property to your buyer because of what it is they're offering. I typically used to tell my client, look, under our BRA, the commission is 2.5. They're only offering 2.25, so you would be responsible for the difference, unless you would like me to bring that to their attention and negotiate my fee first before we put our offer in. What would you like to do? Full disclosure, most of the time I was like, look, I got to be honest with you guys. This property is only offering 2.25. My normal fee is 2.5. I'm not going to go after you for the difference. You know, I believe in client relationships and I want us to work together in the long term. And they would usually say, yeah, that's thanks, Sam. I really appreciate that. And I'd say, no problem. All I ask is if you hear someone talking about buying or selling real estate, think about me and pass that money.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's it.
Can you
Steven?
expand on how you explain the BRA protects the client?
Yes. Vanessa? Hi. I'm so sorry, Zoomland. We can see all of your faces, by the way. All right. Matt, can you ask them if they can see and hear?
It says Sam muted over there.
Yes.
Oh,
All right. Okay. So you guys can see and hear me. Thank you, Zoomland. Thanks for your patience. Okay. Vanessa Barker, I think that the call went down before I sort of gave you a bit of a shout out. Vanessa is a very experienced agent who works heavily with buyers. And Vanessa, Stephen asked the question, how do you frame the BRA in a way that it protects the buyer? I'd love you to use the chat and give us your feedback on that while I weigh in. So Stephen, I think the answer is that you really kind of want to understand what the BRA gives them in terms of this fiduciary duty statement, which you probably heard before. So if the client is an actual client under representation, they get advice, which is the biggest piece of the puzzle, full disclosure. They have to do, you as the agent have to do everything they direct you to or dictate you to, and all of their information is kept confidential and private. If I walk into a property and I'm being shown the property by the listing agent and I say, we really, really want this house because our daughter's going to go to school in September and this isn't the only house in this school district in our budget, the listing agent is not obligated to keep that information confidential. So that's how I would sort of frame this. Now, again, a lot of this TRESA conversation is going to be very topical once we get a little bit more information from the folks at TRESA about what the document actually looks like for you to then be able to go through it. My understanding is that the reason it's so long is because it actually flushes these out in more detail. So it explains to the buyer what they're getting by signing the contract and the obligation of the agent they're working with. Question?
This relates back to like just a little way back to something you said with regard to the commission aspect and like you can write it as per the MLS. What I've been noticing, and I have a lot of other agent friends who are like down like Halton region and further, they're starting to do only 2%.
Yes.
So like I've had an agent from like literally Niagara that I'm friends with, she's like, you guys are at 2.5, and I'm like, okay.
With our Toronto
that's-
prices.
It's GTA, but
I like nice things.
I mean, we like a nice life. We live in Toronto. Like,
yeah.
let's be honest.
It's more expensive here.
It is.
Than Niagara. Niagara's
So
beautiful.
How would we do that then? Because I have
You,
buyers that
you
are
have,
housing
yeah,
in-
you have to discuss it with your buyer. And you can say to them, would you like me to go and negotiate my fee first before we submit the offer? You cannot, by the way, I know none of you do this, you cannot just put 2.5 on the confirmation of cooperation if it says something different and submit the offer. You're not allowed to do that. A lot of people don't realize that. A lot of agents are like, I'll just put in what I want and I'll send it over. You actually, it's not allowed, and you have to have that conversation with the
But
listing
you
agent.
can put as for the MLS, so
You
wherever.
can
they're-
put as for the MLS. I'm gonna come to you in 1 sec, okay? Zoomland?
Vanessa replied to you.
Great.
The buyer rep agreement and the working with realtor outlines the detailed relationship duties and responsibility of the agent and verbiage for the buyer, essentially what you were just covering for buyers.
Great, thanks, Vanessa. Question?
Yeah, what about those buyers that would like to get a share of your commission? I said
Ooh.
no, and I don't want that.
Ooh, how many of you have buyers looking for a piece of your fee? Zoomland, weigh in.
Especially for certain demographics.
Tell them to go to hell.
I just met last week a buyer, and I have off-market property that is coming on the market soon. The guy's just clearing out his space. And this guy came on my open house. He's like, okay, he lives in the area. So he's like, okay, come and see the house before it comes to the market. I think it's 2 minutes. So he came to the house, came out, he liked the property, he's like, let's all off the market. I was like, I don't work like that. And he's take 1.5%. Like take less so the client will be happy, I will be happy. I said,
You're like, but I'm not happy.
I was like, I'm not happy. And he started like arguing with me. It's like, you brought me one showing and you wanna take like 40 grand commission on both sides?
Yes.
And
So I think in that case, Anna, if you have a buyer who's walking into the property and they're making an offer, I'm okay if you're gonna do some kind of a reduction or give somebody something back. Because I think you're not spending the time on the showings, getting in the car, you know, like I said, 3
Yeah,
hours for
but
4
the point
condos.
was like when we start talking, it's like you don't know what I negotiated with my client.
Yep.
And because if I represent both of you, I'm not disclosing you this information. But for you talking to me, like that's enough for you. Like I'm a dog right now in front of you. Like you don't respect my job. And I knew that he is a baker. He owns his firm. So it's like if I will come to a baker, it's like sell me your bread that costs $5 for 50 cents. It's enough. It pays you back, right? Like so it's good. It's like you don't respect me because I'm a woman and young in front of you. You would never speak like that to a man. And he's like, I just tried to make a deal. It's like, no, like we're all trying to make
Yes,
deals.
we're all trying to make deals. So to your point, Anna, is every buyer gonna ask for money back? No, or some. Yeah, absolutely. Andrew Walker, tell me what you say when the buyer asks for money back.
I actually tell them Bill very similarly. My value to you is not this 30 minutes. It's the experience that I've accumulated to represent you situation. I've had 3 over the years. 2 of them just went ahead and we made the offer. And one of them I let go.
Good. Okay. Sorry?
So I just had a scenario where I sold it for construction and well, I introduced the buyer to this pre-construction project, brought them to the sales office, and then I let the sales people know at the sales office that the buyer's gonna come in and choose their unit, bring the deposit, etc. I got a call from the sales representative yesterday or the day before letting me know that they received a worksheet for my buyer from another realtor.
Ooh.
Wow. So you can tell I'm still irritated about it.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So our developer has loyalty to us, Signature. thankfully.
Mhm.
So they
So
called
you got
back.
the client back?
So they called the
Oh,
sales
that's a good
reps who
story.
submitted the buyer worksheet and said, we're not gonna be able to work with you. We have 3 witnesses in the sales office. This buyer was already brought in by somebody
Mhm.
that we have
Excellent,
loyalty with.
excellent. So I think
But
this
that,
is.
hold on,
Oh, okay,
that
sure.
realtor cut his commission in half.
Mhm.
And so now this buyer backs me in a corner
Mhm.
and says, I want you to give me what they're giving me. And I felt cornered.
Mhm.
And so like, I'm still very irritated because I did something that I would never do.
Mhm.
And I'm not even giving you guys the kicker, but I have a very close relationship with this buyer.
Mhm.
And
You
it's
find it disheartening, right? Because
very,
you're like, I've done my job, I've done the
disheartening.
work, and now I'm only getting half.
No beer.
Okay, hang on, one voice at a time. One voice at a time. Question, Cheryl?
I'm just confused. If it's a buyer, it's a pre-construction, how do they get, how does the commission affect
When
them?
you, well, it doesn't affect them, but because a lot of times on pre-con it's 4%, a lot of agents are giving part of that back to the client.
Yeah, so the
them.
developer will give that 2% as a credit to the buyer.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, or the agent also sometimes just gives it to them as a check at closing.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because there's more money there. Okay, let's keep going. Did that answer your question on BRA?
Couple questions from the chat.
Questions from the chat?
Chris Gregoris, what about the co-op commissions that want you to pay a marketing fee? And are we obligated? to
Oh,
pay for it?
stuff your marketing fee. That's what I feel like saying. That's my outside voice. Stuff your marketing fee. I omit the marketing fee from the confirmation of cooperation. That's bad, you guys. Don't repeat that outside of this room. I just take the marketing fee, Chris, and I don't even put it on the confirmation of cooperation. And then when we get the invoice for commission, I ask the deals team if they put the marketing fee on there. And then I call the manager or the broker of record and I say, I'm not paying your marketing fee. That's your hot tip for the day. I don't know how legal it is, but that's how I navigate it. That's how I'll tell you to navigate it if it happens to you. Okay, slide, please. Here we go. So we're gonna take the client through what the process looks like when we're talking to our buyer, okay? And you'll notice the first step is choosing an agent you're comfortable with. So Caitlin, to your point, where your client says, well, I don't know if I wanna work with you, what if you're not good? Or I don't know if I'm gonna wanna sign the BRA. We kind of spoon feed it to them, right? Because we're like, well, this is the first thing you do. You pick an agent. And I used to say during my presentations, I kind of hope you're here because you're going to choose me. But even if it's not me, you should have someone you're working with that's qualified, that's conscientious, that's going to take care of you and answer all of your questions. So that's step one. Then we go to step two. We talk about understanding financing. Have they done financing? Do they need a second opinion? I always suggest getting a second opinion. I'm like, look, even if you're super happy and your mortgage broker is like the person you go home to every night, a second opinion doesn't hurt. You know, it's the biggest piece of debt you're ever going to have. And that also allows you to get a better understanding of the client and their financial situation. Then we go shopping. So again, this is where these viewing property rules come in handy because I think this is the biggest pain point when we're working with our buyers, it's the actual showings. And so I've kind of put like all the things that annoy me onto this piece of paper. Like, don't bring your children. I'm sure they're lovely, but it's really tough when we have them. If you have no other option, fine, but if possible, it's generally a little bit easier if this is what you need to know once we go and we start looking at properties. I'm actually going to update this, Matt, if you can make a note to Christine. I'm actually going to update this about cameras because I find it's a hot button right now. I'm getting a lot of questions and comments and issues around cameras. Everybody has a camera in their house these days.
Yeah.
I'm like, what are we all looking at? Why? What are we all looking at? But in any event, I'm going to put a note in here about cameras just to remind your buyers when they're in a property, there oftentimes is cameras. They want to be careful what they're saying and how they're saying it, right? Okay, slide. Then we're going to talk about making the offer. So in your buyer consultation, I want you to explain how the offer process works to your buyer. And in a different market, we will talk about multiple offers. Of course, in our very normal market right now, we're not going to have to talk about multiple offers. We just talk about single offers. But in here, we want to explain to the buyer how this process works. So the first time we're talking to them about it is not when they're actually going to make an offer. This is when you want to go through all of these questions, talk about how things work. A couple of things to think about when we are explaining price, we want to have those charts handy. So when they say, well, it's now a really good time to negotiate, we're like, yes, let's look at what that would look like right now. I also like to take this opportunity when we're talking about conditions and clauses to talk about the home inspection or the status certificate. How many times do you, or maybe somebody that are seasoned in the room, you go on a home inspection, you forget to tell your buyer what it's gonna look like, and then after the inspection, they're like, okay, here are the 15 things we want them to fix. And you're like, oh, I forgot to tell them. We don't go back and ask them to fix the GFCI in the bathroom. You do that later yourself. Don't worry, that's not a big issue. But if we don't explain what the home inspection is for, what we're looking for, that there's going to be lots of small things that the inspector finds, that's okay. You can fix them once you move in, unless it's something major. Then I find we kind of get stuck. Again, remember I said in the beginning, when you skip the consultation, stuff comes up after that you're like, oh, I could have avoided this if I had educated and guided from the beginning, right? So this is where I explain that. Slide. This also, again, is where you're going to talk about the deposit. You want to find out where that money is. I don't know, Matt's room, you're doing a lot of heavy lifting today. In that dream consultation sheet, can you make a note to ask Christine? I wanted it to say, where is your deposit? How much do you have for a down payment? Okay, we need to add a question there that says, where is it? We want to make sure they have the money ready to go. Yeah. So if we find a property that they want to buy, they can buy it then, and we're not waiting for, what's that silly bank? It used to be ING. What's it called now? Tangerine. Tangerine. You know, they bank with Tangerine. It takes you 6 days to get a freaking bank draft, and you forget to ask at the consultation, and then they're like, "Yay, I love this house. We got it." Oh, you have no money. Oh my God. Cheap fees.
I usually ask how quickly they can get it.
How quickly? Thank you. Great
How
question.
quickly.
Great question. How quickly can you get it?
So you're in breach if you don't deliver in 24 hours.
Okay.
Technically, the deal dies.
Nah, no, it does not. Quick story? You want a quick story?
Yes.
Yeah, quick story. Quick story. So, the offer says the deposit is due within 24 hours after acceptance. It does not say what happens if the deposit doesn't arrive. Right. So technically speaking, you still have a valid agreement, even if that money isn't there. They are in breach, but it doesn't nullify your agreement. So we had an issue. It was, kind of early COVID. Things were still kind of, bouncing around a little bit. We had a property listed by an agent in the Don Mills office. He does a deal. It's our listing. Buyer's agent comes in, puts the deal together. Deposit doesn't arrive. We're like, where's the deposit? Where's the deposit? Where's the deposit? 5 days later, we don't have a deposit. He says, I have another buyer that wants to buy the property. So I said, great, let's accept the second offer, conditional on being released on the first offer. Second offer is for more money. Agent's much more professional. Buyers seem really eager. We tell the first offer, you have until the end of today, or we're going to go with offer 2. We have a second offer. It's better than yours. They arrive, both buyers agents, who have the same first name, which is even weirder. They arrive within 1 hour of each other to drop off the deposit money. So now we're stuck with offer 1. The client is so upset. It's been so stressful. She was a young woman. Her husband had left her. She was going home. She wasn't from this country. She was selling her house so she could go back home to her family. She's standing in the lobby like weeping. And we had to release the second deal because the first guy came in with his check, almost 6 days later. 45 days later, it doesn't close. Oh my God. That is why we don't give back our commission. It's for experiences like this, where we do the job a second time because the deal didn't close.
I have a question. So then what's the point of the offer? Because we had this issue a while ago where it was due, it came a couple days later. What's the point of having these rules if nobody's gonna follow them? And then it's like, there's nothing in there that's stating you have to, like, if I can just bring it, whatever, what's the point of it? So how do you get around that when you're?
We have to ask the very smart people that went to law school. I did not go to law school, that might shock you. But we have to ask the very smart lawyers that put the contract together. I don't know the answer. Andrew?
Can you add a
Yeah.
clause?
Okay, so the challenge with adding a clause is that anything, remember, that you add to Schedule A supersedes what's in the boilerplate. I am not a lawyer. I don't love adding stuff that could go against what's in there. I'll get an answer to your question. I will ask Dan Hicks, or we can ask Gina, who's out here in the West office, who's a fabulous human being. She may know the answer to that question. I would not love you. I don't want all of you going and putting extra clauses in your offer. I will say that.
If there's no remuneration, there's no agreement. Isn't that a standard part of the contract?
It is, but remember, it doesn't say what happens. There's no language in there that says if this doesn't happen, then the deal is dead.
It doesn't say null and void.
It does not.
Well, what would have happened
One voice,
had your buyer, this situation, had she just accepted the other deal? Would this first buyer have sued the seller?
Yeah.
No way. She
Yes.
couldn't even get her stuff together.
That's not how it works. You can't sell your house twice.
Because it was
We did that. That happened to somebody in the downtown office 5 years ago, sold the condo 2 times, 2 separate buyers, by mistake. Because again, the buyers had the same first name. That was a mess.
But I guess giving them the 5 days was the incorrect thing to do, because they probably should have just sent the mutual release.
Yeah, we tried that.
Oh, and
They wouldn't sign it.
But do you not have to sign it? Like, you can't.
You can't force the buyer to sign the mutual release. The buyer kept saying, I'm getting the money. It's in a bank account. I'm getting the money. It's in a bank account.
But then how long, Sam? How long can this go on?
It depends.
Yeah.
It depends.
So did they keep the deposit?
Yes. The deposit stays in trust and we need to resell the property, but she resold it at a loss. Because the market had changed by then.
I've seen a clause added where it says if it is not, deposit is not given within 24 hours, both agree that we're both going to be released, then deposit, all that kind of stuff.
I had a lawyer told me that we couldn't add that for some reason.
I've seen
So I'm
it,
gonna double check that.
but I-
You saw it, yeah.
Yeah,
Good question. Shay, question?
Yeah, talking about commissions, I'm gonna go back to the cash flow. Is there a more tactful way you can handle that conversation?
Then just say no?
Yeah, I mean.
Is there a more
it's,
tactful way?
An honest answer, but, can you defend that or have a candidate that, like any?
Yeah, so so resume land, the question is going back to the commission ask, the rebate on commission from the buyer. So what I will say is I think a lot of it does start with this, right? A lot of it starts with the consultation. A lot of it starts with bringing them into the office, sitting them down, having your booklets, having your presentation, having the markets, the stats, having the charts. I think a lot of it does start there, right? And this is why you spent almost all of our time on the consultation, but it is the most important step because I think that this is when this gives you the opportunity to show your professionalism. And while not an exact science, I will say when agents come to talk to me and they say my buyer asked for a fee back, I ask the question, did you sit down and have a consultation? Did you bring them into the office? Did you educate them? A lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times people say to me, oh, well, I mean, I talked to them.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, 8 out of 10 times, I mean, this is the way to go consultation first and then everything else. But 2 out of 10 times I've been in situations where the first thing they say, what's the cash flow?
Yes.
Like, because if you don't cross that hurdle, there's a no.
Yes, and so maybe, but I would rather that, to be honest, than getting down the road with them, signing the BRA, and then when you get to the offer, they're like, oh, by the way. So I think it's okay if they ask for the cash back in the beginning before you've even done the consultation, because then you can determine whether or not you're going to spend your time.
Yeah, but is there a way I can have?
Yes, yes. So what I would say, I'm going to spitball some language for you. What I would say is, thank you so much for asking that. Shay, it sounds like the commission you're paying is a really important piece of this buyer process. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah.
And you're going to say, yeah, it is. Okay, and would you say that's the only criteria you're using in selecting a realtor?
For now, yes.
Okay, great.
Because I have the knowledge, I've been tracking the market for a long time.
Great.
So I know what I want to do, like, but this is a criteria that
Great.
I was, yeah.
So if that's the case, then I think you, as the realtor, get to make the choice, right? And I'm not going to say right or wrong. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but you then get the choice. It becomes your decision, right? If they emphatically say this is the most important thing, hi, sorry, Zoomland. Sorry, we're having some internet issues. I hope you can all hear me. Sam, watching your reaction to no sound was the highlight. What did Vanessa say? Watching your reaction to no sound was the highlight. You guys are my 4th session this week. I had 2 signature lives. I had the champions event, and now I'm here with you guys face to face. And so I get a little like I get a little punchy by Friday on a 4-day week. I get a little like, okay, let's keep going. Shay, going back to your question. If I ask you the question, is the commission being offered by a realtor the most important thing to choosing an agent? And you say, I don't know. Then I have an in, and then I would say, okay, well, how about we do this? Is it okay with you if we sit down and I go through with you what I do, how I represent my clients, I educate you, blah, blah. And at the end of that meeting, Shay, then you can make the decision as to whether or not I'm the realtor for you at my normal fee, or whether you think maybe it's not the right fit. So I think you're looking for the answer to that question. Is the commission being charged by a realtor the most important thing to you making a decision? And if the answer is that's the most important thing, I'm not sure I would waste my time if you're not willing to give some of that feedback. If the answer is I'm not sure, I would take a stab at trying to do this consultation and really wowing them with my knowledge, my professionalism, and what I can help them with. And then I ask the question again at the end. Okay?
And for when I received a yes for the question, is that the thing?
Yeah.
Now, how I end the conversation is I'll not be looking to close your transaction, irrespective of how long it takes. And B, do you really want to work with someone who can't even negotiate his own fee?
Yes.
Let alone negotiating a good price for you.
Yes, I love that.
So, and that's how I ended saying,
Yeah.
Okay, now it's your decision.
I think you keep the door open. I mean, this is a little off topic for a quick second, if you'll indulge me. I think you always keep the door open, right? So when you know, I think sometimes even I'm guilty of it, where I'm like, oh, those people are wasting my time. Like, why would they even ask this? I'm offended, I'm insulted. We get kind of, up in our high horse, right? And I do it too sometimes when I have agents come in and they want to negotiate their commission split. And I'm like, do you know how hard I freaking work for you? No, this is what it looks like, right? But I think it's important to leave the door open, because they could go work with a realtor who's not very good. It's the same thing as when you go on a listing appointment, especially right now. You go on the appointment and the seller calls you back and they say, thanks, you were great, but we've gone with someone that's only charging 1%. Well, that doesn't mean the property's gonna sell, especially in this market. So I think you always leave the door open, always. I always think you take the high road. I always think if you have a friend or a family member that works with somebody else and you're like, I can't stand them, I think you leave the door open. I think you take the high road. You never know what's gonna happen, okay? All right, let's keep going. Zoom land, everyone's okay there?
Sam, are we gonna get a copy of this? Because this is different from what we have in our
It is?
booklet, whereas last.
Oh, this is the buyer. So this is the actual buyer presentation.
Okay.
It's in the portable. We'll email it out as well so you can look at it, okay? Slide, Matt. Okay, so why choose signature? We're gonna fly through this. Again, it just talks about who we are, blah, 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 let's fluff, how great we are. I hate talking about how great we are, so I don't. But again, if you're new, you wanna marry yourself to the brokerage and talk about brokerage experience and how you can get all of these great benefits. If you're experienced, this is gonna say, the Andrew Walker brand or the Andrew Walker experience or why choose Andrew, and put specific information in there about experience, negotiation expertise, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, then I want you at your consultation to go through buying costs. I want you to explain all of the costs associated with purchasing a home with the client. When you're discussing their down payment with them and the cash they have available, that's how I set it up. Can you please tell me what you've been pre-approved for? We've been pre-approved for $1 million and we have $200,000 down. Okay, great. Does that include your closing costs? And they normally go, huh? And you're like, okay, yeah, that includes your closing costs. Great. Okay, so let's talk about what those closing costs look like. And you want to go through this. I go through this even if they've said the mortgage broker has done it. Normally they don't, to be honest. I go through it anyways at this point in time. Question?
I find that both buyer and seller. What's your recommendation on doing the 2 books or?
Yes.
Yes.
I would do 2 books. We've gone back and forth on putting it all together, but in the end, we just end up doing 2 books, to be honest. Slide, please. Yep, keep going. You get to the land transfer tax and they go, oh, never mind, I changed my mind, I don't want to buy a house. Then you can talk about forms and documents. I think this is especially super helpful with the FinTrack. How many of you get to the FinTrack where you ask for their bank account number and they're like, what? I'm not giving you that information. I think it's helpful to say, look, throughout this process, you're going to be asked for a lot of personal information, just kind of help set the stage of the expectation. Slide. Are you ready to get started? So when you're at your consultation, remember, we do this, okay? So we do our book, we do our booklet, we ask them what they're looking for, we talk about finances, then we pull up our presentation, we go through it step by step, like I've just done with you here. And then at the end, you're like, okay, are you all ready to get started? And they're like, well, I think so, yeah. What does that entail? And you're like, well, we have this agreement like we talked about when you choose your realtor, so I'm hoping you're choosing me, and then you just pull out the contract and you put it in front of them. Hope they sign it. Okay, let's go back to the booklet, please, Matt. Okay, so if we go back to a system to work with buyers, we did the this one. I think we've covered almost all of this. Skip some slides for me, Matt. Yeah, stop. Sorry, that was aggressive. Stop. No, here's good. That was aggressive. Stop. Okay, a couple things I wanted to mention on this piece of the puzzle. Excuse me, for you. So again, just to summarize what we talked about today, at the consultation, you want to get them talking. You want to educate them on the market update. You want to educate them on the process, and you want them to sign the contract. That's your goal at your consultations with your buyers, okay? The contract, ideally, you can do a 2-week trial period. That was my most effective way to get people to sign the document. Either we sign it for 2 weeks and get to know each other, or we don't sign it for 2 weeks, and then we sign it after that point once we've gotten to know each other, okay? At the showing property conversation, a note on etiquette. I am so proud of every single one of the agents we have at Royal LePage Signature. And part of why I'm so proud is because of this conversation called etiquette. I hardly get a single call about someone not showing up or someone being late or a buyer standing on a driveway without a realtor there, or a open house or a home inspection where someone damaged something or did something they shouldn't. I very rarely, if ever, get a phone call like that, which makes me really happy. In this business, when you are showing properties, you are out in the field and all you really have is your name. That is your brand, right? So when you're out there, you want to be thinking about how professional do I look? I'm not physically, but you know, you have your business cards, you have your RICO license, you look organized, you look professional, you remind the client, hey, we don't know if there's cameras here, so let's be careful. You really kind of understand that when you're out in the field and people can see you, that's how you're representing yourself. So just think about that. I want you to send a calendar invite for showings, those of you in the champions meeting. That was a little tip I picked up from Adina. Every time she goes to meet with her buyers and she's going to show them property, she sends them a calendar invite. I was like, well, I think that's kind of nice. It really sort of, I think, professionalizes it and shows the client what your value is. And it also, I think, avoids any kind of like canceling and moving and this and that. You're like, no, we're booked in and here are the properties we're looking at and here's the whole thing. You want to have comparables on hand. So when you're showing properties, you want to have at the very least high level comparables, but even if you can get a little bit deeper, I think it's important, especially right now because there is a lot of buyer choice and they're going to ask lots of questions. Like, can we get this house for this? Or can we do that for that? And how many times maybe it's just me that I put my foot in my mouth and been like, oh yeah, we can negotiate no problem. And then I get back to the comparables and I'm like, ooh. Right, this is actually priced really well. You're gonna have to go in and asking, not under, like I told you earlier.
Your step needed to do your
House Sigma. If you haven't done your homework, you can use House Sigma.
while you're there.
While you're there, do a really quick little searchy room.
Up to the bathroom.
Housing is important because your buyers are using it.
Yes.
Yeah, they are.
Your sellers are using it. You need to know what it says. It's an algorithm, but you need to know what it says so you can speak.
Yes.
Client it generates, unless you're on Rev and you get the activated listings or Realm. My buyers, if we're on Trev, yeah, they're getting their listings before we send them out to them.
Awesome.
So
Zoomland, the conversation is on using House Sigma and how important it is to know what's on there. Okay, we got 3 minutes and I want to wrap us up. A couple things. Discuss driving. So make sure your clients know if they're coming with you. If you're driving them, I shared with you, I never took people in my car after a certain point because it just was too terrible. And I actually got a performance review. Royal LePage used to send out performance reviews of one of the ladies that I worked with, but maybe you should consider not driving your clients. I was like, okay, that's it. We're not taking anyone in the car anymore. It's fine. They can drive themselves. A note on safety. You always want to, this is not, some people say to me, I think this is really just like a woman's issue. It's not. Over the years I've been managing, I've heard personally myself about more than one man and woman being attacked on a showing, being lured into a property. You know, I'm not an alarmist. I don't want to freak you out, but I will say when you're going to meet people, you should either have checked their ID already. You can ask for the FinTrack in advance so you know who you're putting in your car. You also can, you know, take a friend or use a buddy system or call someone who knows where you're going to be so that they can go and check in on you if they haven't heard from you in a certain amount of time. Okay, so a note on safety. In the condo side of things, you want to know how to access the properties. Where is the lockbox located? How do you get to it? Do you have to speak to concierge? Do you have to check in with them? You know, some of those buildings have like the sky lobby on like the 9th floor and you try to bypass it, you can. You know, that's why it takes 3 hours to look at 4 properties. I never looked at amenities on the first showing. That was just my hot tip. I would set it up with the client at the consultation when we're going to look at condos. The first time around, we're just going to look at the properties themselves at the actual condo. Once you've narrowed down to a certain building, or if you want to go back and see something a second time, we'll make sure we can get the key ready to go and look at the amenities at that point in time. Negotiations, we're going to cover in module 5. And offer and conditions, we've talked about that already. So those of you that are newer, or would just like it, how many of you would like a script for the buyer consult? I didn't put it in the material, but okay. So I'm going to update that over the weekend and I'll get that out to you with the follow-up information. And I will speak.
To let you know too, you mentioned scheduling and sharing. If you use Brokers Bay and you create a tour, you can actually put your buyer's email in there.
Ooh.
And it share. Oh yeah, it shares.
Hot tip.
Yeah, it shares the.
Y'all know that? Say that again. In Broker Bay, you can create a tour. From Broker Bay. Okay, so that is the end of the buyer module in 90 minutes. Whew. Yeah.
The reminder for that question.
Yes. Did I answer?
No.
Okay, I'll do that as soon as we wrap up.
Well, my thing,
One voice, one voice.
my question to Adina specifically, she showed a slide, and I'm actually hoping to go back and find it, where she talked about making her buyers make an uncomfortable but right decision. Because a lot of the times I'm like, just buy this right now. It's a great idea. It's an awesome option for you. And then the people, everybody's got house sickness, so they're all experts.
Yes, everyone's an expert.
So my
Everyone's an
specific thing was about that one slide. That way I can use it, so I'm not just yelling at my friends.
That's good. Yeah, we don't want to yell at them. I mean, like a little yelling, but not a lot of yelling. Okay, so I want to wrap up with a couple things. Number one, I want your points. So does everyone have a group now? Some of you just hopped in. Zoomland, can you make sure you chime in the chat if you do not have a group? If you are looking for friends.
I've already made some notes to add.
Thank you, Matt. Let's give Matt a round of applause that he lost without him. Saves my butt every day. I'm always like, Matt, I can't figure out how to move the thing in my forms again. What do I do? So if you are not in a group, please let me know so I can put you in a group. Groups, does everyone's group have a designated or assumed leader?
I am. No.
No. Does everyone's group have an assigned leader? So I'd like every group to pick a leader, and it's going to be the leader's responsibility to collect the points per individual and email them to me. So the email will say group 5, and then the team leader's name and their points, and all of the participants and their points. Okay? Question?
Yes. Open house, is that attending like brokers opens or is that?
No, that's hosting. The open house is hosting. It's nice to support your friends, but you don't get points for it. Elena Saraditas, if you're on this call, not my whole group's not getting points because they came to your fancy open house. Those pastries look amazing, but that is hosting. When do I want the points by? Oliver asked, great question. I'd like you to email me by Friday. So your week's gonna start on Friday. So I'd like you to email me points on Friday. So today I wanna see everyone's points.
If some people are not responding to communications inside groups.
Put that in your weekly email. So when you send me the email for this week, you can say group 5, team leader, points, this person points, this person points, these 2 people non-responsive, and I will follow up with those 2 people. Not everybody that starts finishes, yeah? Congratulations on being here, Zoomland. Congratulations to you folks on being face-to-face. Not everybody finishes the course. I beg you to finish. I beg you. Even if you show up and you're like, I got 5 points this week. I don't care. Get yourself in the habit of doing it and showing up to the class, and it'll make a difference because those 5 points might be the only thing you need to do to get one new lead and do one other deal. Okay, so stick with it. Don't give up. If it gets a little murkier and harder.
Can I defend my team member here who does a lot of open house previews for our clients, which I
Okay.
do as well.
All right, this is a negotiation on the
Yes.
points.
So-
Okay, I see.
So we're.
I
we
see.
actually
Everyone pay
go-
attention. I'm going to get hustled.
We actually go to see open houses for the purpose of our own buyers and making sure it's something that they would like to add to
Yes.
their,
Yeah.
so that's what we do. And we get to know the area and the market and what's our competition.
Is that important work?
Yes.
Yes.
Is it lead generation work?
No.
No.
Well, I disagree, because if I have a client that may not necessarily be active at the moment, but I'm constantly previewing investment properties, or, you know, I know they're looking to move down the line, but I see the perfect house. I have clients that have said, like, you know, if the right house comes up, we'll move.
Okay,
I think.
so I still disagree, but I'm willing to negotiate with you, okay?
How about it goes under the CMA category?
You can have some points for that, but I'd like to present to you Exhibit A. I really wanted to go to law school, but I wasn't smart enough. Exhibit A. What is this? Roller coaster of real estate. Why do we end up on the roller coaster?
The market.
Leads. We end up on the roller coaster because we generate a whole bunch of leads, and then we get those clients and we start working with them. And then we get busy in our business, right? In our business. We're like, I got listings, I'm doing this, I'm running around, I'm doing all these things. And then hopefully, if we've trained you well, you get to this bottom of the roller coaster and you have a nice little pocket of money for yourself because you closed all those deals, which is great. But then you look around and you're like, again, again, like my daughter says, let's go again. I'm like, mom's maxed out after one coaster. That's it. Go on yourself. So going to preview the properties is important work, and I'm not saying it's not. I really want to get you in the habit and the activity of really thinking every day, have I done the lead gen activities to stay off the roller coaster? So you can have points for that, no problem. But I would say I want other points first before those points are generated. So before you give yourself the points for the going to the open houses, you've also made some calls, done some CMAs, sent out emails, etc. Okay? Questions or
For the 10 points on the open house, is that just 1 day or 2 days?
That's 1 day.
Okay, so we do 2 days, it's 20 points.
Correct. Mundo.
What if my open house is 3 hours instead of 2?
Okay, everybody, if you want to stick around for a few extra minutes, you're welcome to. Zoomland, thanks for your patience. So good to see you.